What if the humans you thought were a myth, wiped from history, are back? After centuries of silence, humanity has returned, not as peaceful explorers, but as a terrifying force of vengeance. And they're coming for one thing: payback. Their ships, ancient, yet more powerful than anything we've seen, are tearing through the galaxy, and no one can stop them. Stay with us to uncover the shocking truth. Welcome to HFY Sci-Fi Love and War Story, where we explore the most epic battles and unexpected comebacks in the galaxy. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for more jaw-dropping tales of human resilience. After centuries of being erased from the galaxy's memory, humanity reemerges, not for peace, but for something much darker: vengeance. With their fleets decimating the once invincible Dominion Empire, the humans prove that legends don't just fade, they come back stronger. And now, the galaxy must face their worst nightmare. But is humanity ready for the consequences of their relentless drive? The silence of space is deafening, and in its endless depths, we float like insects in an infinite void. The stars above us seem cold and indifferent, distant witnesses to the ancient dramas that unfolded long before we ever reached the stars. The Dominion has ruled the galaxy for eons, its power unchallenged, its empire sprawling across hundreds of systems. Yet, in the quiet dark, there are things we do not understand, that still haunt us. We were alone in the uncharted expanses of deep space, far from the prying eyes of our rivals. It was supposed to be routine, a survey mission, a simple patrol. But something stirred within the void, something ancient and forgotten. The Vash, our pride, its sleek black hull gleaming like a dark omen, was the flagship of the Dominion's military. It was designed to withstand any threat, a vessel that struck fear into the hearts of even the most powerful enemies. Its engines hummed with the force of stars themselves, and its weapon systems were as deadly as any in existence. But as I stood on the bridge, staring at the deep black expanse of space, I felt an unsettling shiver crawl down my spine. Our sensors flared to life, flashing warnings that echoed through the ship's command center. At first, it seemed like another anomaly, another space debris field. We had seen them all before. But this was different. My eyes narrowed as the data streamed in, flickering on the holoscreens, revealing a pattern, a sign of something unnatural. I gripped the armrests of my command chair, my claws digging into the cold metal. The crew stood frozen, waiting for my orders. We had been here before, in the dark void of space, expecting nothing more than the hum of the engines and the distant glow of distant stars. But this anomaly, this presence, was something that filled the air with dread. "Captain," came the voice of my first officer, his tone tight with anxiety. "We've detected a fleet. It's coming from the outskirts of the sector. They're moving toward us." A strange, unfamiliar sensation gnawed at me. I felt my throat tighten as I gave the order to bring the Vash into full combat readiness. It was absurd. The human race was supposed to be a legend, a myth, wiped from existence long ago by our forebears. I had never believed the stories. Humans were nothing more than a cautionary tale, a whispered warning to the young species of the galaxy. A dangerous myth that had been erased from our history. But now, as the sensors continued to pulse, sending wave after wave of data, I knew the impossible had come to pass. The myth was real. Humanity. The word felt foreign in my mouth, like a bitter taste that lingered on my tongue. The fleet was coming, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was impossible. These weren't just old tales spun by the elders, they were alive, and they were returning. The ships on the sensor readouts looked ancient, their hulls scarred and weathered by time, but there was a strange beauty to them. The design was brutishly efficient, a far cry from the sleek elegance we were used to. These ships, these human ships, were built for survival, for war, not for peace. Their weapon systems, while crude compared to the Dominion's might, pulsed with an unrelenting, terrifying force. They were not here for diplomacy. They were here for retribution. The Vash, the pride of our fleet, would soon learn just how much power these mythical creatures had retained. The transmission came next, straight to the heart of the Vash's communication center. The voice was cold, mechanical, and unmistakably human. It crackled through the speakers, filling the room with a chilling, undeniable certainty. We are humanity. Surrender or be destroyed. Surrender? I felt my claws tighten around the edge of the chair as my mind raced. The nerve of them, these ancient legends, to speak with such arrogance. They were myths, their existence forgotten for centuries. How could they dare issue such a demand? And yet, as I glanced at the sensor readouts, I saw the truth in the data. The humans, with their ancient ships, were not bluffing. Their weapons were already charged. Their fleet was organized. They were here to remind us of a lesson we had long since forgotten, that the universe does not forgive, and time does not erase what has been wronged. The sensors continued to pulse, and I felt my pulse quicken. I could feel the air on the bridge growing heavier with every second. The Vash was ready for battle, but something deep in my gut told me that this would be a war unlike any other we had fought before. The humans were not just another race in the galaxy. They were something else entirely. They were not here for conquest. They were here for survival. They had survived, and now they had come to remind us of what we had tried to erase. The power they wielded was far beyond what we had imagined, and for the first time in my life, I knew the Dominion was facing an enemy unlike any we had ever seen. The myth was true. Humanity had returned. And this time, they would not be forgotten. We approached cautiously, the cold void of space stretching endlessly before us. The fleet of the Dominion, unmatched in power and technology, glided through the stars with an air of superiority. We were the apex predators of the galaxy, rulers of countless worlds, confident in our indomitable might. But as we neared the approaching human vessels, something in my chest tightened. I had been warned about the legends, about the humans, but I had dismissed it as myth. Now, as the first human ship emerged from the shadows of the void, I understood that no warning could have prepared me for what I was seeing. The ships before me were old, battered relics from a bygone era, but they radiated a strange, unsettling presence. Their hulls were jagged and imperfect, patched together with what appeared to be makeshift materials. There was no elegance, no refinement. These ships had been designed for nothing but survival and warfare, constructed with a raw, brutal efficiency that sent a chill down my spine. Yet, despite their crude design, they felt like something more. These ships had endured, and their very presence spoke of a species that had been underestimated, forgotten, and now returned with vengeance. The Vash, our pride, advanced with calculated precision as our sensors scanned the approaching fleet. The human ships seemed almost insignificant at first. The arrogance in my thoughts surged. I believed we were untouchable. These primitive vessels posed no real threat. We had faced far greater foes, and each time, we emerged victorious. The humans were nothing more than a story, a fable told by the old ones. And yet, there was something in their movement that unsettled me. I turned to my command crew, each of them exuding an air of cautious confidence. Ready weapons. Prepare to engage, I ordered. But as soon as I gave the command, a deep rumble reverberated through the ship. The Vash shuddered violently. My eyes darted to the damage reports flooding the screen. The first hit had landed, and we had not even seen it coming. My pulse quickened, and I gripped the armrests of my chair as the full magnitude of the situation began to dawn on me. I had underestimated them. The first human missile hit the Vash with a force that I could not comprehend. The explosion was not loud, it was sudden, violent, like the fabric of space itself had been torn apart. The missile, though aged, carried a destructive force that pierced our shield systems and sent a wave of electrical feedback through our engines. The Vash trembled as if it were a fragile thing, and the impact sent shudders through every deck. At that moment, I understood that we were dealing with something more dangerous than we had ever imagined. The missiles, old as they were, packed a power that no one could have predicted. They were not just projectiles, they were weapons born of necessity and desperation. The Vash had been crippled in mere moments. Damage report. I barked, my voice steady despite the panic rising within me. The response came quickly, our shields were down, the hull was breached, and several systems were offline. It was impossible. We had faced opponents with far superior technology, but none had ever struck so fast, so efficiently. The humans, these myths, they were real, and they were alive. And they fought with the precision of a species that had learned the brutal art of survival. The human ships weaved through the chaotic barrage of fire from our fleet. Their movements were like shadows, swift and precise, ducking and dodging between our attacks with an eerie grace. It was as if they had been born to fight, to destroy, to survive. Every missile they launched hit its mark with deadly accuracy. I watched in horror as another vast ship disintegrated in front of me. It was a moment of sheer terror, the sight of a once proud ship falling to the firepower of a few ancient human vessels. The Vash had never been outmaneuvered like this before. We had trained for decades, perfected every weapon, every strategy. But the humans were not fighting by any rules I had ever seen. They didn't care for honor, for codes of conduct. They fought with desperation and ferocity, as if every moment of their existence depended on their victory. And in this battle, it did. The first of our fleet fell in a single, devastating strike. The Vash was nothing but wreckage now. The human ships, though battered and scarred, kept coming. They fought like demons, relentless, unstoppable. And with each passing second, I realized we had no idea what we were up against. The battle lasted less than an hour. In that time, we had lost more than half our fleet. My mind raced as I watched, helpless, as ship after ship fell to the unrelenting assault of the humans. We had been so certain of our superiority, but now, with every explosion, with every devastating blow, I understood the terrifying truth: the humans had returned. They weren't just a species we had erased from history, they were a force we had no chance of stopping. I thought we were the apex predators of the galaxy. But now, we were the prey. The last vast ship vanished into the void, destroyed by a barrage of railgun fire from a human warship. Our fleet had been annihilated, and in the silence that followed, only one thought filled my mind. The humans had come, and they were not here to negotiate. We thought we had crushed them, that the battle would be a mere formality. After all, the humans were nothing more than myth, relics of a lost era, their ships as old and battered as their forgotten legacy. We sent wave after wave of ships, confident that their crude weapons and outdated tactics would never stand against the might of the Dominion. But as their fleet retreated, they didn't vanish. They returned, and this time, they were different. They were stronger, faster, and far more terrifying. At first, I had believed we had simply driven them back. But then, the reports came in faster than we could process. Human ships, hundreds of them, popping up across the galaxy like shadows in the night, attacking with a brutal efficiency that left no room for mercy. No matter how many we destroyed, they kept coming, each ship more advanced, their strategies more cunning. We could no longer keep track of them. They were no longer simply a nuisance. They were a force. Our fleets, once the dominant power in the galaxy, were now scattered. Entire divisions were wiped out in the blink of an eye. Our colonies, once protected under the iron grip of the Dominion, crumbled under their relentless assault. We were being hunted, not like prey, but like animals driven to the edge of extinction. There were no negotiations, no requests for peace. The humans fought with a singular, unyielding purpose: to destroy us. To make us feel the weight of our past sins. And we, who had ruled this galaxy with fear, felt the first taste of terror. Their tactics defied all logic. They moved like ghosts, appearing and disappearing faster than we could react. Every ship they launched seemed like a new nightmare, each more insidious than the last. They didn't follow the rules of warfare. They didn't wait for their enemy to make the first move, they made the first move and the last. They attacked where we were weakest, targeted our infrastructure, and obliterated our supply lines. No front was safe. No sector was untouched. And then came Chorus 99, a colony that had once been nothing more than a quiet world, a speck on the map. We had believed it to be a minor outpost, insignificant compared to the vast expanse of the Dominion. But when the humans set their sights on it, they didn't just take it, they dismantled it, piece by piece. Their brutality knew no bounds. There was no subtlety, no attempt to negotiate or assimilate. They didn't want resources, they didn't want peace. They wanted vengeance. The first wave hit before we could even respond. Dropships descended like a swarm of locusts, their engines roaring through the atmosphere. The humans on the ground were relentless, merciless, moving like shadows through the streets, tearing apart everything in their path. The Dominion forces stationed there didn't stand a chance. They fought like demons, like creatures who had nothing to lose, and perhaps they didn't. I watched from my command chair, helpless, as the images of Chorus 99 unfolded before me. The cities, once shining beacons of Dominion power, were reduced to ruins. The once proud fleets we had sent to protect the colony were shattered, torn apart by missiles that screamed through the skies, breaking apart the very foundations of the Dominion. Human soldiers and exoskeletons charged forward with a ferocity that defied reason, their weapons tearing through our defenses like they were made of paper. And then the message came, broadcast across every channel, every communications relay: humanity has returned. And we are here to destroy everything you've built. It wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration. The humans had come back for something deeper than revenge. They were here to settle a debt, one that the Dominion had thought was long forgotten. They weren't here for conquest. They didn't need more power. They didn't want anything we could offer. They were here to make us remember what we had done to them. They were here to show us the price of our arrogance. The destruction spread. It wasn't just Chorus 99, it was every world we had taken for granted, every colony we had dismissed as insignificant. One by one, they fell. The humans didn't fight with honor or strategy, they fought with fury, with an intensity that left no room for mercy. We, the mighty Dominion, were losing not because we were weak, but because the humans had learned how to survive in a way we never could have understood. We had erased them from our history, believing them to be nothing more than a ghost, a cautionary tale. But now they were real, and they were more terrifying than any threat we had ever faced. The humans had adapted. They had learned from the past, and now they were making their own future. One where the Dominion no longer held power. It was clear to me now. The war we had started, the war we thought we had won, had only just begun. The humans were not coming to join us, to negotiate with us. They had come to take back what we had stolen from them, to reclaim the galaxy for themselves. And they were doing it with a single-minded focus that no empire, no force, could stand against. We had underestimated them. And now, we would pay the price. I stood in the war chamber, the once proud heart of the Dominion, now shrouded in a thick, oppressive silence. The chamber, typically filled with the echoes of commands and strategic discussions, was now a graveyard of uncertainty. The walls, adorned with banners of our empire's ancient victories, felt suddenly hollow, as though even the decorations could sense the crushing weight of our failure. Around me, the greatest minds of the Dominion, our top generals, intelligence officers, and war tacticians, were seated, their faces grim, their eyes shadowed with fear. The screens before us flickered with data, reports pouring in faster than we could process. The data streams were filled with images of devastation, chaos, of worlds we once ruled, now reduced to rubble. The humans, these myths we had long discarded as mere stories, had returned with a vengeance. I could feel my claws tighten around the armrest of my chair, my mind struggling to make sense of it all. How had we misjudged them so terribly? How had we allowed them to rise from the ashes we thought we had buried them in? The Vash, the pride of our fleet, had been obliterated in mere minutes. The reports from every corner of our empire were the same: human fleets, primitive by our standards, striking with terrifying precision, overwhelming every one of our ships with tactics and brutality we had never anticipated. They moved like shadows, their warships darting through the stars with a speed and fluidity that defied logic. The weapons they used, ancient, yes, but devastating, tore through our defenses with ease. Railguns, missiles, and kinetic strikes that, despite their age, ripped through the hulls of our finest ships like they were paper. Their technology, primitive as we once thought, had evolved into a weapon of unparalleled destruction. I could hear the murmurs around the room as the officers and generals read the reports, each one seeming more damning than the last. The Dominion's once mighty fleets were in disarray, scattered across the galaxy, struggling to regroup. Whole fleets had vanished, reduced to dust in the wake of the human assault. Our supply lines, our communications, our military strongholds, they were all being systematically dismantled. "The Vash is lost," General Tannic said, his voice barely a whisper. His mandibles clicked nervously, a rare sign of unease. We underestimated them, Chancellor. We were too confident, too dismissive of their power." I nodded, though the words felt like a weight on my tongue. The truth was undeniable. We had dismissed them as myths, fables meant to frighten the younger races of the galaxy. We had erased them from our history, believing they were no more than a cautionary tale. But now, those myths had become a brutal, unrelenting reality. "How are they doing this?" I demanded, my voice cutting through the murmur of panic that was beginning to rise. "Their ships are old, their technology outdated." "How have they survived?" Sane interrupted, her pale hands trembling as she scrolled through the data. "They weren't just forgotten, Chancellor. They've been hiding, waiting. These humans have adapted. They've been preparing for something we didn't even know was coming." I felt a cold shiver run through me. Preparing for something. The phrase echoed in my mind, the meaning sinking in slowly, like a dark tide creeping up to swallow the shore. We had believed that the humans were extinct, that their empire had collapsed long ago. We had no idea that they were watching, waiting for the right moment to strike back. "They didn't just fight to conquer," Sane continued, her voice trembling. "They fought to survive. To reclaim what was stolen from them." A cold realization gripped my chest as the full weight of our situation settled in. The humans weren't just fighting a war for dominance. They were fighting for something deeper. They weren't attacking to gain power, to expand their borders. No. They were fighting to settle a score, an ancient debt, long buried in the galaxy's forgotten history. The message had been clear when the human fleet first emerged from the shadows of the stars: humanity has returned. That simple phrase, broadcast across our communications network, had rattled us all. It wasn't just a declaration, it was a warning. The humans weren't here to ask for forgiveness. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to make us remember. "Chancellor," General Tannic said, his voice hesitant, "if we do not stop them, we will lose everything. Our fleets, our colonies, our very existence." "You think I don't know that?" I snapped, my claws digging into the cold metal of the table. "But how do we stop them? Every fleet we send is torn apart. Their tactics, they don't follow the rules of war. They don't negotiate. They only destroy. We've never faced anything like this." The generals around the table shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting away from me. No one had an answer. We had no strategy, no preparation. The Dominion had fought countless enemies before, rival empires, rebellious factions, pirate forces, but we had never encountered a species like humanity. They were relentless, unpredictable, and, worst of all, they had nothing to lose. "They're not just fighting with weapons," Sane murmured. "They're fighting with a purpose. A purpose we can't even begin to understand." I stared at the screen in front of me, watching as the data poured in. Reports of more human fleets appearing every day, their numbers growing with alarming speed. Our spies had no answers. Their colonies were fortified, their shipyards working at full capacity, producing warships faster than we could imagine. But what chilled me the most was the realization that we were fighting not just a war for control, but a war for survival. And the humans, with their savage ingenuity, were far more prepared than we had ever believed. "I'll never forget the look in their eyes," General Tannic said, his voice low. "They were hunting us, not for resources, not for power. They were hunting us for vengeance." Vengeance. The word felt like a punch to my gut. The humans weren't fighting for land, for glory, or for any of the reasons that had driven countless species to war. No. They were fighting because we had destroyed them, because we had erased their history, because we had killed their kind. And now, the price of that ignorance was unfolding before us. The war was no longer about empires. It was about survival, our survival against the species we had written off long ago. The humans had returned, and they weren't going to stop until they had settled the score. I felt my chest tighten, a deep sense of dread washing over me. We had no plan. No way of knowing how to stop them. And as the reports continued to come in, each one worse than the last, I knew one thing for certain: the Dominion was crumbling under the weight of its own arrogance. Humanity had returned. And we had no idea how to stop them. I stand on the bridge of the Indomitable, the cold steel of the command chair pressing against my back, my fingers gripping the cold console before me. The view beyond the viewport is both terrifying and exhilarating. Massive Dominion warships, their dark forms gleaming with malicious intent, advancing toward us. Their weapons are ready, and their fleets stretch out like a great shadow across the stars. But today, they don't intimidate me. Today, they will learn that humanity is not a myth, not a forgotten relic of the past, but a reckoning. A force they should have never underestimated. The Dominion thought they had eradicated us. They believed we had vanished into the void, wiped from existence. But as I look at the faces of my crew, human, determined, resolute, I know the truth. Humanity never forgot. And now, we stand at the precipice of our final victory. For centuries, we've fought in the shadows, surviving, adapting, building strength. We've watched as the Dominion expanded, crushing everything in its path, erasing entire species from the galaxy's history. But we were never gone. We were just waiting, gathering our strength, preparing for this moment, the moment when we would make them pay for the genocide they inflicted upon us. The moment when we would take back what was rightfully ours. And now, the time has come. The first wave of destruction hits their fleet, and I feel the vibrations reverberate through the Indomitable's hull. The Dominion never saw it coming. They were so sure of their power, so arrogant in their belief that no one could stand against them. But our ships, crude, old, and battered as they are, strike with precision. Our railguns roar to life, sending projectiles speeding toward the Dominion ships. They don't stand a chance. The projectiles tear through their shields like paper, bypassing their defenses with ease. Plasma blasts erupt from our cannons, lighting up the dark void as the enemy ships break apart, disintegrating under the force of our onslaught. I watch the chaos unfold on the tactical display, the once proud Dominion fleet crumbling under the weight of our assault. For a moment, I almost feel pity for them. The arrogance, the belief that they could control the galaxy without consequence, has led them to this utter annihilation at the hands of a species they had long considered extinct. But there is no mercy here, no forgiveness. The war they started ends today. Our fleet moves like a predator stalking its prey. We don't hesitate. Every shot, every strike, every maneuver is calculated with the precision of a species that has spent centuries perfecting the art of survival. The Dominion is no longer a threat, it is a broken empire, and we are the force that will finish what they started. The human fleet moves with deadly purpose, old ships in new configurations, all fighting for one cause, survival. We have the weapons, the tactics, and the fury of a species wronged. We fight not for power, not for territory, but for justice. The justice of 1,000 worlds erased, a history forgotten, a genocide unpunished. And today, the Dominion will pay. The battle rages on, and I can feel the weight of it pressing down on me. This is no longer just a war. This is our reckoning, our chance to right the wrongs done to us. The battle is not fought with strategy alone. It is fought with the blood of our ancestors, with every soul that was lost when the Dominion sought to erase us. They thought we were nothing. They thought we were weak. But they were wrong. As I glance at the view screen, I see the shattered remains of Dominion warships. Their once unstoppable forces now lie scattered, broken, helpless in the face of our fury. The first wave is nearly over, and we have lost nothing. Their fleets, so sure of their dominance, are now nothing more than debris floating in the cold void of space. I know the end is near. The Indomitable hums beneath me, its systems responding with a relentless power that feels almost alive. We've come too far to stop now. The last of their fleet is retreating, but there is no escape. They cannot hide, they cannot flee. Not this time. Not anymore. As I watch the last Dominion ships crumble under our assault, a sense of finality settles over me. The war is over. The Dominion will never rise again. Their era is at an end, and humanity, once forgotten, once dismissed, is now the galaxy's true force. This victory is ours, and we will not let it slip through our fingers. The Indomitable moves forward, its guns still hot, its crew still resolute. Our task is far from over. There will be more to rebuild, more battles to fight. But for now, we stand victorious. The stars no longer shine with the cold light of fear. They shine with the warmth of hope, the hope that humanity, against all odds, has returned. And we will never be forgotten again. As humanity's wrath takes the galaxy by storm, the Dominion crumbles under the weight of a forgotten past. Their once great fleets are destroyed, and no empire is safe from the fury of the humans who have returned to claim what was stolen from them. Are you ready to see what happens next in this epic battle for survival? Like this video if you're shocked by humanity's return, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to HFY Sci-Fi Love and War Story to follow the most intense sci-fi tales across the galaxy. Humanity's battle is just beginning. Will they bring about a new era or destroy everything in their wake? Find out in our next episode. Subscribe now to make sure you don't miss it.